Started by asking if this was the week that his dream of a second Brexit referendum died.
No, I think the question of where we go in the future now is very open. I actually thought his letter was helpful in one sense, because the underlying point in his letter was you have to decide what type of Brexit you want before you leave. And this to me is the absolute clear thing. I've never thought that you would get to another referendum going directly to it. You'll get to it when people see what the true Brexit alternatives are. And the truth is, there are two. You can have a soft Brexit, which is really what Jeremy Corbyn's suggesting, or you can have the hard Brexit that Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage and other people want. And what I've really been saying all the way through this process is you've got to decide which of those Brexits you want before you leave. Otherwise, you're going to leave without clarity. And if you leave without clarity, no closure. The argument just goes on. And by then you'll have left, you'll have paid your money up front, you'll have given up your negotiating leverage. And for the country to do that, as Theresa May wants to do, to leave without knowing what Brexit you get, this would be, in my view, an incredibly foolish thing for the country to do. It's got to know where we're heading before we leave.
I just don't understand how you get to a second referendum, because you can't get to there without the support of the leader of the opposition. I can't see how that happens. And if you look at what he's saying in this letter, our first priority must be a deal that's best for jobs and living standards, and he's talking about the aim of securing a sensible agreement. I mean, this does not sound like a man who is about to back a second referendum. That sounds like a man who wants a Brexit deal to pass the House of Commons.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. That is what he wants. But here's the thing. I think Theresa May will reject that letter. Indeed, in a sense, already has. And the soft Brexit that he's proposing, once you start to focus on that, okay, supposing Parliament, as it should do, puts before Parliament for a vote the different Brexit options, because you've essentially got two. You've got a soft Brexit option, which is what Jeremy Corbyn's suggesting. That keeps you in a position more or less like Norway is at the moment. Or you have a harder Brexit option. You go out of the trading system of the European Union, you have a free trade agreement like Canada. So you've got soft versus hard. Once you actually get to deciding which of those propositions you want, it's at that point that my suspicion is ultimately there'll be no support for either of them, and then you get to another referendum. And you, by the way, you may get to another referendum in order to say to the country, look, now we have a firm Brexit deal. Do you prefer that to staying?
If we do leave on March the 29th, is that it? Or is there a possibility we might rejoin?
I think, look, some people think, you can leave in March 29th and then you go into a long transition period. Maybe you try and rejoin during that time. I think that's highly unlikely. I think what will happen once you leave is you're out. And that will be it for a generation at least.
To coin a phrase from Donald Tusk, do you think there's a special place in hell for a Labour Party that facilitates Brexit?
Well, I don't think it's wise for the Labour Party to facilitate Brexit, because I don't think it's in the interest of the country. And, one of the things I find most curious at one level, although I kind of get it at another level, is when I talk to Labour MPs and Leave constituencies who are backing Brexit, and you will say to them, okay, I know all the problems you've got in your constituencies, high levels of unemployment, poor levels of education, poor infrastructure, lack of investment. How do you think Brexit is going to make these problems better? And they will usually say, I don't think they're going to make them better, but the people voted for it, and therefore I feel I've got to vote for it too.
Donald Tusk said this week that today there's no political force and no effective leadership for Remain. And he's right, isn't he? There's a problem, isn't there? That the face of the people's vote is yourself, it's Chukwu Muna, it's the PR boss Roland Rudd live from Davos. I mean, you're not really doing much to challenge the perception that this is a movement from the metropolitan liberal elite.
This is an argument we've just got to be really robust about. I mean, 60 million people voted to Remain. I mean, they're not all members of the metropolitan elite. And by the way, they're members of the metropolitan elite on the other side of the debate, and very wealthy people on the other side of the debate. This is a nonsense. The question is, what's in the interest of the country? And the country voted to leave, but it didn't vote as to what form of Brexit. And it's a bit like having a general election where the question is, do you like the government? If that was the question, very few governments would get re-elected. Governments get re-elected when it's, do you like the government or do you prefer the opposition? And this is why what is important is that before we leave, we get the clarity. And for the British people, I'm intensely aware from the conversations that I've had with people, there is a degree of alarm, boredom, resignation over Brexit. Most people probably think, look, we voted for it, just get on with it. And this is, of course, where a parliamentary democracy matters, because really what's happening is once Parliament studies it, it's saying, well, hang on, it's not just a question of getting on with it. Do you want a soft Brexit or do you want a hard Brexit? And this essential dilemma is the thing that has made this negotiation so extraordinary over the last 30 months, because essentially the government, because the cabinet can't agree and the government can't agree, they've never made that choice.
I want to talk to you about Ireland as well, because you were, of course, involved in the Good Friday Agreement, and you understand more than most the sensitivities in Ireland and Northern Ireland. So, from your perspective, if we have a no-deal Brexit, will there be a hard border?
Yes, for sure. If we have a no-deal Brexit, no one could responsibly propose this. It would be economically very, very dangerous for Britain and for the peace process in Ireland. It would potentially be devastating. You would have a hard border, very hard border. A no-deal Brexit means a really hard border between North and South in Ireland. It's contrary to the Good Friday Agreement, and it will cause an enormous fissure within the United Kingdom.
What would the impact of that hard border be?
Well, the impact will be that the thing that has been in existence since almost 100 years of the Republic of Ireland's, creation as an independent state, that border that's been open for that length of time, and when Britain and Ireland have always been in the same relationship to Europe as each other, that will end. You'll end up with real problems at the border, huge economic problems south and north, and a very, very bitter atmosphere. No, nobody responsible could propose a no-deal Brexit, and that's why I think even if there isn't a parliamentary majority at the moment for a particular form of Brexit, or indeed for another referendum, there's definitely a parliamentary majority against no deal, and I really do believe there are people within the cabinet who are sufficiently serious and responsible not to allow that to happen.
Do you think that some politicians are playing fast and loose then with the peace process?
Well, I think they've been playing fast and loose with it from the very beginning. Those people who cheerfully say that you can put the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland in a completely different relationship with Europe in trading terms, and it make no difference to the economy of the North of Ireland. I don't know on what basis they possibly say that.